It's episode 667 on the Locked On Rangers podcast. On today's show, I am ranking the Rangers' biggest needs heading into the 2023 season, talking about that loss to the Astros and Bubba Thompson's first MLB home run. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan since 2010, founder and host for all 4 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. It is Wednesday, August 31st. Your Rangers are 58-70. Thank y'all so much for making your Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers and subscribe on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment any single thing below. What we're getting into today is a few key pitching promotions, some really nice things that have been going on the Rangers farm pitching-wise that has not been the case for most of the season. We're going to talk about Bubba Thompson's first home run in that loss to the Astros last night, and we're going to rank the Rangers' biggest needs heading into the 2023 season. But first, today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before, because BetOnline is where the game starts. Now, let's start with some minor league promotions. Zach Kent, the Rangers AA pitching prospect, the first and only so far Rangers prospect to appear on the show, was generous enough to join us last year. Had a solid breakout season last year. Things were not as great for him at AA. This year, the start was not super great, but he has been promoted to AAA. He's had a few really good starts in a row, and Mason Englert, who has been in High A, who has been on a tear. Actually, funnily enough, his last start was not super great, but for the month of August in general, and even late in the month of July, he has been crushing it. The Forney kid, who was one of the primary victims of the deload program, is going to be in AA pitching in his home area. It's not going to be pitching in Forney, but he's going to be pitching in Frisco, which is, a lot closer than Hickory is. He is 22 years old. He is a big, tall righty who has had some really great starts in August, starting off with a 7 innings of 1-run ball and 7 strikeouts. Then he had 7 no-hit innings with 6 strikeouts. Following that up, he had 6 innings of no hits and 3 strikeouts. And his last outing was 4 2/3, 5 hits, 4 runs, all earned, a couple of home runs allowed, and a couple of walks, but still 5 strikeouts. So the guy has been on a tear lately. Both of those guys definitely deserve this good thing happening to them. It has been a rough season pitching-wise for the Rangers minor leaguers. Cole Ragans was one of the few bright spots, and he recently went on the IL after making a couple starts in the major leagues, and now we are stuck with Dallas Keuchel. By the way, Kohei Arihara, who had a really rough outing on Sunday, has been relegated to the bullpen as kind of a long man. He has lost his spot in the rotation, so I guess the Rangers are just going to be going with a bullpen game every 5th day, because that's gone super well for them this year, so why not? But Dallas Keuchel, after allowing 7 runs in 5 1/3 innings to the Tigers, does not lose his spot in the rotation. Sure, cool. That's all fine. But let's look at last night's game. Not a whole lot of great things going for the Rangers, which you could say about pretty much every game against the Astros, except for that one where Martin Perez threw a complete game shutout. By the way, he is on the hill almost as we speak, as I'm recording this. So by the end of this recording, he will be on the mound pitching against the Astros. Maybe the Rangers can salvage a split in this series, or maybe they'll get swept at home and everything will look like doo-doo garbage heading into the month of September. But I do think September 1st, even though it won't be at home, I don't think you should make your minor league prospect decisions on what's going to put butts in seats. If they do wait until the Rangers come home again to promote Josh Jung, it's going to be another week after that, maybe 8 days. So I say go ahead and bring him up. If he's not ready at third base, which he might not be defensively, just DH him because the bat is clearly ready. You can get him healthy. I want to see him. I would like to see the baby. as they say in The Mandalorian. But last night, I was really impressed with Dane Dunning. It was not a great outing for him, but the way that he was able to battle through, he was at so many pitches through just 3 innings, and he found a way to be efficient and get through those couple extra innings, and ended up going 5 innings, allowed 3 runs total. Only 2 of those were earned, and walked 3, and struck out 5 against this really dangerous Houston Astros team. He allowed a solo shot to Jose Altuve and a leadoff double to Jose Altuve, his 30th of the season. Freaking Altuve, that short guy just cannot stop hitting against the Rangers. And offensively, it was not a great day for the Rangers, but they did have home runs by 2 rookies, Ezequiel Duran and Bubba Thompson. I will say his second major league home run, even though technically it is his first. His first one should have been in Houston a couple weeks back when that fan reached over and robbed him of that first MLB home run. Ended up going as fan interference and double, even though it was very clearly going to land in the stands. Umpires reviewed it and got it wrong. But now they can't take this one off the board. This one was absolutely crushed, about maybe 6 to 10 rows back. He just absolutely got a hold of it off of Framber Valdez, who has been on another level as of late. He has 22 consecutive quality starts, which is the longest streak for any left-handed pitcher in Major League history, which is absolutely wild. Congrats to him. Went 8 innings. The only 2 runs that he allowed were those 2 solo shots, one by Ezequiel Duran, which was just a fastball that was grooved right down the middle. And Ezequiel Duran does not miss fastballs, no matter what velocity. If you throw them right down the middle, he is going to jump on them. And he jumped on that one for his 5th bomb of his rookie year at the major league level. Decent game for him. Multi-hit game for Adolis Garcia, who just snapped that hit streak, still has the on-base streak going. I believe that on-base streak is now at 25 games. It was a 23-game hitting streak, got a pair of walks in the game before, then started a new hitting streak in today's game. But the Rangers bullpen did fine enough work. Taylor Hearn had a little bit of trouble in his 1 inning of relief, allowed a couple of walks, 1 hit and 1 earned run and 1 strikeout. Leclerc worked a couple of shutout innings, and Matt Moore worked a shutout inning as well. The Rangers lost a 2-run game, not a 1-run game, so, a little bit of progress there. But even Nathaniel Lowe, who has been crushing lefties, crushing everybody as of late, was held hitless in this one. Also had a strikeout against Framber Valdez, who was just on another level in this one. Corey Seager didn't reach base either. It was just not a great day for the Rangers offense. Not a whole lot they could do. And I'm starting to get a little concerned about Jonah Heim, who is in a pretty darn bad skid as of late. His OPS is all the way down to 736, when I feel like just a couple weeks ago it was right around that 800 mark. It is not there. He has been kind of in a free fall in the second half of the season, which you got to give a little bit of grace for, because he has been the everyday catcher he was not expected to early on in the season. But I think maybe a couple of days off in a row might do him a little bit of good. Get Mabrice Valoria in there for a couple games. Just let him get right. I'm pretty sure that Valoria is hitting in this day game, but I could be completely wrong. We'll see. Maybe we can go to Fenway and, knock a couple of dingers over that monster in left field, get a little bit of confidence back. But Josh Sborz is also on the IL. AJ Alexi has been called back up, and I believe those are all of the news and notes. Before we get into this ranking the Rangers' needs, they have quite a few needs. They have a desperate need to be contenders next year. And they've got a few needs they can fill. I'm going to rank their top 5 needs. But first, this episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your pro and college football betting needs and sports info this season. You can find all the latest football league developments, game matchup, news, and podcasts, including this year's opening week's games. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. It's college football is back this week. The NFL will be back the week after that. If you want to go place some bets on some games, if you're like me and you want to bet on your team, Alabama against Utah State, I feel like that's a pretty safe bet. There's going to be a key matchup between LSU and Florida State on, I believe, Sunday night. That could be one if you're feeling confident about the Noles. If you're feeling confident about LSU, go make a bet on that. Or I believe it's also Ohio State and Notre Dame that are facing off. Should be some really good football this weekend. If you want to bet on it, go to BetOnline, because that's where the game starts. So the Rangers have a very strong edict that they need to compete next year. They need to pretty much be in the playoffs, make that wild card spot, and they have a ways to go. Right now, they are already at 70 losses. The Dodgers just hit 90 wins at this point, and it is still in the month of August. Right now, they're on pace to have about a 85, 90 loss season. I think it might end up being closer to 90 losses at this point. They've been a little better under Tony Beasley. I'm not sure if he's going to be the manager next year. I would give him the lead in the candidacy at this point. I'm not sure what other more experienced veteran managers they can go out there and get. Maybe they want to go out and get the Toronto Blue Jays former manager. Maybe they want to go bring Jace Tingler back because he is, I think, been in the playoffs. We'll see what they do, but they're going to have a decent chunk of roster overhaul. Now let's look at what the Rangers need. Number one, I'm pretty sure you can guess what this is. It's starting pitching. The Rangers need starting pitching. They need it bad. Without John Gray in the rotation, with Taylor Hearn moving out of the rotation, with Cole Reagans starting to look decent and then getting hurt and having to call up both Kohei Arihara and Houston Keuchel, the Rangers just have shown how much they need more starting pitching. Glenn Otto has done fine for a fifth, sixth swingman kind of starter, a guy who would probably be in AAA starting or theoretically in the bullpen if the Rangers had a team like they envisioned. Taylor Hearn was not able to work out as a starter, but as a long reliever, as a short reliever even, he has been fairly effective in that role. Spencer Howard did not work out really at all as a starting pitcher, and Kobe Allard also not really working out as a starting pitcher. So the Rangers, from what they have right now, they need at least two starters. And Martin Perez is still, at this point, a free agent at the end of the year. They have got to re-sign him. Priority one is re-signing Martin Perez. That is the biggest need by far. They've got to get this extension done by the end of the year. I just feel really confident that this is what the front office needs to be entirely focused on. Once they finish organizing the chaos and settling everyone down after all of the turmoil that happened a couple weeks ago, once you feel like your house is in order, then get to work, call Martin Perez's agent, offer him a 4-year deal. Maybe it's $60 million. That would be almost double what Martin Perez has made in his career so far. To date, according to Baseball Reference, which may be incomplete, he has made $35.792 million in his major league career. You offer him 4 years, $60 million. I do not think he's going to turn that down. He's talked about how much he has loved being in Texas, how much he wanted to come back to Texas, how he even had some multi-year offers, and the Rangers just signed him to a 1-year, $4 million deal this year. And you know, I feel like if he is going to be willing to take that, then you have got to be willing to sign him to that multi-year deal. Show him the commitment that he has shown this organization in just being there for young players, being the rock of this staff, being healthy the entire season, just all these great things that he has done for this franchise this year. The Rangers need to reciprocate that and show him some love, keep him around for the long term, and have this ability. Now, is he going to put up a 2.69 ERA next year? Is he going to be able to throw maybe 180 innings? I think that's about what he's going to be on pace for this year, depending on how far he goes in this start today. I don't know. I think the 180 innings mark is probably about what he might be able to hit next year. This is his first year going back into a full-time starter. He has not pitched a whole lot of innings in the last couple of years, which, you know, part of that was the pandemic. Part of that was he lost his role as a starter in Boston. But I really do think the Rangers can count on him to 150 to 180 innings for next year if he is anywhere close to what he has done. Yeah, the last time he threw 180 innings was 2017. He's actually only done that twice. 198.2 innings in 2016, 185 in 2017, and with the Minnesota Twins, the 1 year he was there, he had 165 innings in 32 games, 29 of those were starts. So I think the Rangers can definitely count on him to be a workhorse next year, to be healthy, because John Gray is still on the IL. I have not heard any update on him. He has been there for a while. He only has 19 starts under his belt. Right when he was starting to figure things out, he just went on the IL with that oblique injury. I was a little worried it would be an elbow injury and that we wouldn't be able to see him for all of next year. Thankfully, that is not the case. It is just the left oblique strain. I don't know if we're going to see him for the rest of the season. I literally have heard nothing. He hasn't pitched since August 1st. He had that 1 1/3 inning outing and then exited the game with an injury that looked pretty scary at the time. Thankfully, it was just that. So we'll see how that works out. But the Rangers starting pitching has got to be the number one priority, and Martin Perez has got to be at the top of their needs to fill of just retaining him because Dane Dunning has been fine, solid number 4 or 5 starter. That's fine. He's got a 4.16 ERA in 134 innings, 25 starts this year. Like he's fine. His ERA plus is 94, so he's a little bit below league average this year, but he's fine. He's fine, and you can count on him. You can count on John Gray. You can count on Martin Perez, but the Rangers need to prioritize number one, re-signing Martin Perez. Coming up, we're going to look at items 2 through 5 of the Rangers' needs. None of them are quite as pressing as the number one need, except for maybe the number two need. But first, this word from our sponsors. Now, the number two need for the Rangers, it's starting pitching again. That's right. It is so important. It is number one. It is number two. I'm not going to make it number three, even though it very well could be. The Rangers have to get some starting pitching. Now, I don't know how aggressive they're going to be in terms of free agents. I think they have to at least sign one free agent starting pitcher, some veteran, maybe a guy for the top of your rotation, or maybe you just go for a guy who's, kind of maybe a number 2 or 3, maybe number 3. And then you trade for a number 1, number 2 starter. I don't know that John Gray on a playoff rotation is the number 1. Martin Perez is pitching like one this year. I don't know if he's going to sustain that. I hope so. I think there's a decent chance, but I'm not entirely banking on it. So I think the Rangers need to go get someone who is close to a top of the rotation pitcher, maybe trading for one of those Marlins starters, giving up a decent haul of prospects. The Rangers have a really deep farm system. They have a lot of guys there, and a lot of guys that are going to be needed to be put on the 40-man roster. They have quite a few of those guys at the upper levels, and as much as I like all of them, the Rangers might need to decide who they think is going to stay and make an impact on this team, who they think is going to be best utilized their value for the franchise in trading for a starting pitcher. I do think they're going to be aggressive on the trade market this offseason for starting pitching because they need at least 2 more starting pitchers. Go sign one, then trade for another one. You might be saying, oh, well, they've got all these guys in AAA and, Jack Leiter and maybe they got Kumar Rocker that's knocking on the door next year. Maybe Cole Winn figures it out or whatever. Maybe Owen White. Maybe. I don't know, but those guys are not sure things, and if you want to compete, you got to have some close to surefire things, and even if you get those nearly surefire things, sometimes those guys get hurt, and so if a Jack Leiter or a Cole Winn or an Owen White or one of those guys figures it out at the AAA level next year and pushes on the door and knocks on it and nearly bangs the dang thing down, then you make a change. One of those guys can go and compete for one of those starting spots in the rotation. I mean, as much as I like Dane Dunning, he's not, absolutely crushing it right now. His spot is, solidified in there as major league starter. But if Jack Leiter reaches his potential and the Rangers go trade for one starter who is a number 1 or 2 or 3, and they sign a starter who is number 1 or 2 or 3, and Jack Leiter is kind of actualizing himself, then he would probably be able to knock a Dane Dunning out of the rotation. Maybe a Kumar Rocker would, or an Owen White would as well. Maybe even Cole Winn. But at this point, those guys are not doing that. So the Rangers starting pitching has got to be priorities number 1 and 2. It is just that darn important. Number 3 is not pitching. It is not pitching related, but it could be. Left field. Left field has been a disaster for the Rangers this year. As much as I have appreciated Kole Calhoun, he's been, a good guy in the room, a good guy in the clubhouse, a nice veteran leader, yada, yada, yada. He just has not been producing on the field. In 101 games this year, he has a 627 OPS, an OPS plus of 78. That is 22% worse than league average. And left field has got to be a offensive positive position. Usually you throw the guys who can't play defense in left field, or you throw them at first base. And, well, Nathaniel Lowe has been doing that at first base, and he's been absolutely bringing it offensively. He is definitely making up for any value lost defensively with a boatload of value offensively. I talked extensively about that in yesterday's episode. And then, of course, the very next day, Lowe goes over because, of course, but the Rangers need some offensive production out of left field. Now, I think internally might be how the Rangers solve this because I think they're going to spend a lot of money on at least one starting pitcher this offseason. There's quite a few options out there. They're all going to be pricey. They're all going to be pretty risky as well. But I think internally might be how they solve the left field. If they do go externally, I mean, the guys who are available after Aaron Judge in the outfield, it's pretty much like Joey Gallo and then not a whole lot else. There are not a whole lot of really great options that are going to be worth the money. And I think the Rangers might end up going with either Ezequiel Duran or maybe they put Josh Jung in left field because his bat can definitely play in left field. I think maybe that might be where he ends up position wise. But the Rangers need something out of there. Aaron Zavala is absolutely crushing it at Double A. He's still hitting 400 last time I checked with an OPS over 1,000, and it's been a few weeks of him being in Double A. Maybe Dustin Harris is knocking on that door. Maybe even Josh Smith is out there in left field. I don't know, but I do know that the Rangers need better offensive production from that left field spot than they've gotten so far this year. Number 4, third base. I have really been impressed with what Ezequiel Duran has done. He is still 23 years old. He has now played 50 games at the big league level. He has officially shed all prospect status, but he just has not played that many games in the high minors. He just got promoted this year to Double A. He has 63 games before outside of his major league experience. So he now has 113 games above the high A level, which is pretty darn impressive that he's been able to do this well. He's got a 677 OPS, just hit his 5th home run of the season, got 4 stolen bases, 9 doubles, an on base of 290. He's walking at a higher rate than I thought he would at the major league level, 12 walks in 193 plate appearances to 46 strikeouts. He has not shown the power that he's shown at other levels, but again, major league pitching is really darn hard to figure out, and he has done a decent job. But decent is not quite good enough. Defensively, he has been good. He's been a .4 WAR player according to Baseball Reference this year in 50 games. That's fine, solid. But in order to compete, the Rangers need a little bit more out of that. I think offensively, Josh Jung is going to provide a little bit more with that bat. Defensively, he's fine. He's fine at third base. Ezequiel Duran, I think, is good. Straight up good. I know he just made an error last night, but he is quick. He is rangy. He's got some soft hands. He's got a really, really strong arm. Now, it's not always the most accurate, and when I was ranking the Rangers' future third base options, I ranked his arm a little bit below Josh Jung's. That is not because of power. StatCast has his arm as one of the stronger arms at third base, making some really, really strong throws. Not quite O'Neill Cruz levels, but still really strong throws. But they have not always been incredibly accurate because he does not have as many reps at third base as Josh Jung does. Jung's arm is not quite as strong, but it's fairly accurate, and he has made a crap ton of throws at third base because he has played it all throughout the minor leagues. Most of college, he did play shortstop. I believe it was his senior year that he played shortstop. We all knew that he wasn't going to be a shortstop. The Rangers have tried him in instructs at second base, first base, and at left field. Now that might end up being where he ends up. Probably not second base, but left field or maybe some first base. But Nathaniel Lowe is holding down that spot with incredible offense. I don't know they're going to move him to everyday DH. I don't think they're going to move Nathaniel Lowe to left field. It'd be much more likely that they move Josh Jung to left field. But third base has not been great at this point, and I think the Rangers need a lot more from than what they're getting from Ezequiel Duran at the moment. Now next year, I think he's going to be a lot better. Having that year in the big leagues under his belt, I think maybe it's Josh Jung there. Maybe one of those two is going to be in left field. I think one of them is going to be in third base. Both those guys have the bat to be an everyday major league player. Now, how quickly can they get their bat from nice potential to actually producing pretty good offensive results? I don't know how long it's going to take, but I know both those guys have a lot of potential. Now, the 5th spot is the biggest question mark of what the heck they're actually going to do with it. 5th biggest need, I would say, is DH. Is it going to be Mitch Garver? How much is he going to be able to catch? How healthy is he going to be next year? Mitch Garver, I think, is the ultimate X factor, the ultimate wild card for this team next year. We have seen what a healthy Mitch Garver can do. We have seen what a hot and healthy Mitch Garver can do. Even a hot and not quite fully healthy. He had that week where he hit 3 home runs in a row. I believe I'm not sure if all of those were against the Angels. I think one of them was against the Astros on the road, then two against the Angels. He has played catcher, he has played first base, he has played DH. He has been a primary DH for the Rangers this year. He's had some really great seasons in 2021. Even in those 68 games that he played, he had an 875 OPS. The year that he was the most healthy, or at least the producing at the highest level. He had 31 home runs in 93 games back in 2019. Don't forget that. I know he's getting a little bit older. He'll be 32 next year, and he might end up DHing a lot more than he catches, but that bat is still incredibly valuable. And even at the 702 OPS that he had this year while playing primarily DH, that's a 100 OPS plus. That was about average for the league. He had 10 homers in those 54 games. When he is playing, the homers come. He has got that ridiculous level of power. Now, what are the Rangers going to do when he is not DHing or when he's catching? I don't know that Jonah Heim is going to DH as much. With how he was doing offensively the first half of the season, I thought, okay, well, both those guys are going to play a pretty decent number of games. They're going to probably about evenly split the catching duties. And when one of them is not catching, I bet they're going to DH because at that point, it was pretty much the most valuable bat that the Rangers have. But I do think they might see Ezequiel Duran or Josh Jung doing a little bit more DHing next year than just always having that backup catcher because Jonah Heim is, like I said, in a really, really rough way. He was at, I believe, 11 home runs. Maybe it was 12 before the All-Star break. But since the All-Star break, the homers have just completely dried up for him, as has the power. He has been asked to do a whole lot this year. He has been asked to do a whole lot more than anticipated, but in the last 28 days, he's got a 579 OPS. You look at the last couple of weeks, he is batting 097 with an on base of 243 and slugging 194. He has just one home run in the last 28 days. In the second half, he has just one home run in the second half. It's just not been super great for Jonah Heim's power in this post All-Star break for him. I do think he is more suited to that backup catcher role, maybe a catching tandem with Mitch Garver, ease a little bit of the load of him, of asking him to catch so much and let him, have some more rest. And maybe I don't think he is this exhausted and the offensive numbers are this bad in the second half next year. But again, this is his first full season as the primary catcher. He has not been asked to do that at the major league level. He's already got 103 games under his belt. He has only missed 25 games. He's only not played in 25 games this year. That's a lot to ask for a catcher. Now, granted, he has DH'd in a lot of those, but still, he has been asked to do a whole lot. And DH wise, I don't think the Rangers are going to go out and spend on a DH, but I do think they need to get a little bit more production than what they have gotten. I mean, on the left side, it's pretty much some of the biggest offensive positions the Rangers have not gotten a lot of offense from. Left field, offense first position, have not gotten a lot from there. Third base, usually an offense first position. It's been fine, but it could be a lot better, and it might even be better by the same people that are manning it this year. And DH, it's just been fine. And since Mitch Garver has been gone, it has been less fine. So those are the top 5 things that the Rangers need to prioritize in the offseason. Notice I did not mention the bullpen. I think the bullpen is okay. It's fine. It is not an area of concern. You probably want to bring back Matt Moore, see if he can recreate this magic with that new curveball. Brock Burke has been fantastic. I do not really want to see him in the starting rotation unless they feel just abundantly confident that he can replicate this insane run that he has been on this year as a starting pitcher. I don't know that he can, and I'm worried that it might ruin it if they try it, but we've seen it happen before, and we've seen it work before, so I don't know. We'll see how that works. But I mean, they have Jonathan Hernandez has been fantastic. Jose Leclerc has regained his form. Brett Martin has been fine. Matt Moore has been really good. Other guys in the bullpen have been fine. Maybe we'll see Joe Barlow next year, who has had a lot of blister injuries, and I don't know that we're going to see him before the end of the year. But when he was up, he was mostly pretty solid. So the bullpen is not really a big area of address, and you definitely don't want to see them spending money on relievers this offseason. You've got some guys, and Emiliano Teodo, who might just fly through the system. By the way, I talked about him having his fastball being his best pitch. His fastball does sit 98 to 101, and I believe his touch as high as 103. But he's got a curveball that's about 88 to 91 miles an hour. That's a curveball that he can throw for strikes and he can bury in the dirt. So I think that might be the best off-speed pitch in the system. He's already got the best fastball in the system. He might be a guy who the Rangers want to just fly through the system, get him up at the major league level, and see what kind of nutso things he can do at that big league level with those two crazy, crazy pitches. That's going to do it for today's episode. Thank y'all so much for listening. I'll be back tomorrow talking about a Rangers finale in this series. We'll see how well they do against the Astros in this afternoon game. Maybe we'll be talking about a Josh Jung promotion because it is the first day of September tomorrow. But for your second listen, go check out the Ultimate Pro Football Preview, an 8-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NFL season. The local team experts of the Locked On Podcast Network, plus a betting angle from Lee Sterling of Locked On Bets, all combined into one ultimate NFL preview. Search for Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank y'all so much for listening, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.